Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I've got a fun video for you where I'm going to be doing my Call of Duty Warzone weapon tier list. And I thought you'd enjoy this because on the channel I'm always trying to break the meta, do in-depth, have a fun game with bad guns and stuff like that. Not a whole lot of tryharding, not a whole lot of what really is the best class. So I thought this would be fun and go through and talk about what's good and what's not. Today's video does have a sponsor, which is fun because it's the graphics card that I use to get all the gameplay that you've seen so far and record the green screen segment and edit it back in and render the video and even the tier list and everything else. So as you can see, we're going to have some, regular Warzone gameplay around me. We're going to use that when I have a longer opinion about a gun, when something really needs some explanation. But most of the video is going to be me sitting in front of the tier list talking a little bit more like this. There's about 50 guns to get through today, so we have a lot to talk about. So let's do our sponsored segment first and then jump straight into this tier list. Today's video is sponsored by ASUS and powered by NVIDIA GeForce RTX, which is a fantastic sponsor because everything that you see from getting the gameplay, capturing the gameplay, and rendering the gameplay on Premiere was all done on an ASUS NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080 Ti graphics card that I use literally every single day to make everything you see on this channel. What ASUS wanted from me was to tell you guys a little bit about their 20 series graphics cards, and one of the cool things they have that other people don't is what's known as Auto Extreme Technology Manufacturing. It's the world's first fully automated production process for graphics cards, which matters because adding human beings adds a lot of human error. So having a fully automated production process means way less error on your graphics cards and way more reliability for you as a gamer. NVIDIA GeForce RTX graphics cards are powered by NVIDIA Turing technology, which is the most advanced GPU architecture for gamers. You have amazing features like ray tracing, AI-powered DLSS 2.0. You can use these in games like Minecraft RTX. So when you combine the Auto Extreme manufacturing process, which has great reliability, with the raw capabilities of an RTX graphics card, you have a powerful combo that is going to give you a fantastic gaming experience. If you're interested in upgrading your rig with a 20 series graphics card, please click the link down there below in the description and check them out. We are finally here at the actual tier list, so let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and do this in order, and we're going to start off with the Striker 45 or UMP SMG, and this is one that I don't think performs very well in Warzone. Its low rate of fire and its damage don't really give it a fast time to kill, which means I could maybe put it in the C or mediocre zone, but it also has an awkward wobble and awkward handling overall, so I think that kind of drops it down to D tier. It's better than some of the actual trash tier weapons, but overall not very good, not something I would use. The AUG 556, however, which is our next weapon today, is, in my opinion, fantastic. This one is absolutely going up here at the very tippy top in S tier, and I want to cut back to the gameplay for just a moment to tell you that yes, the AUG 556 has been nerfed so that it takes one more shot to kill, but many other weapons have also been nerfed, so comparatively still not bad. It's still a top tier time to kill weapon, especially for fully automatic. It's still got great range. The accuracy is interesting, so in the very technical sense, it is quite accurate. However, its recoil isn't super predictable, so its precision is low. Some people find it awkward, some people find it difficult to deal with. I've personally always found it to be extremely reliable, extremely fast killing, and despite not being popular, still one of the best weapons in the game. However, the regular AUG, that one is probably going down here in the C tier. It's better than the Striker. It's usable in 9mm mode, but it's not really the best. There are other weapons that outperform it by a pretty considerable margin. Kilo 141, I'm gonna probably move up here to the A tier. Kilo 141 is pretty good. I almost put it down here in B, but I think A is better. It's kind of like an M4A1, slightly different handling, slightly different recoil, slightly different stats. But I think the thing that really elevates this weapon is the integrated suppressor barrel, which is good in my opinion, and the 100-round magazines, which is just very, very fun for assault rifles. Moving along, this one's going to be a little controversial. M4A1, I kind of want to give it an A tier, but I'm actually going to drop the M4A1 from A tier down to B tier. Not quite F, but I'm dropping it down here in B because I feel that it's overrated a little bit, definitely overused. Statistically speaking, it's very similar to the Kilo 141. It might kill maybe like a little bit faster, but the Kilo has different range and recoil. But for me, what really drops the M4A1 down is the iron sights. The iron sights are just not very good, especially at long range, compared to the Growl, compared to the Kilo, compared to the Bruin or PKM or any of these weapons that are super easy to aim with, the M4A1, in my opinion, is not. I'm kind of struggle bus with the iron sights on this one. This is going to be another controversial one, the Kar98. This is a very popular weapon, especially recently. It's made a comeback after it's been buffed to where it gets the guaranteed one-shot headshot at any range. So you'd think I'd want to put it in S because it's a really fast handling sniper rifle than the others, or maybe even A tier because the damage does decline a little bit at long range, but I'm actually going to put the Kar98 down here in B tier because while yes, you can one-shot headshot with people, and yes, it's snappy, it also has a pretty weak body hits. Like if you're getting body hits with this weapon, you're really not doing anything but irritating people, not even cracking armor in some instances. And on top of that, it has worse ballistics and worse bullet drop than all of the other sniper rifles. So it's not quite as useful. This is more like your in-game sniper rifle. Mark II Carbine, Cowboy rifle. It's statistically similar to the Kar98, except the range is way worse. And I don't think it gets guaranteed one-shot headshots, so I'm moving that one down here to the F tier. It's got 6 bullets, it shoots slow, the range is way lower than you think. Like it's going to deal its maximum damage only up to 20 or 25 meters or something like that, and then it falls off. Not a great headshot multiplier. Overall, not a great weapon. There's not a lot of real good ways to use that weapon. However, let's move on to another marksman rifle, the Crossbow. This one is almost certainly going to be controversial, but I'm actually going to move the Crossbow up to A tier. So for the vast majority of you, you're going to sit here and tell me the Crossbow is definitely an F tier weapon. Maybe D, because you can blow people up. But I'm going to put the Crossbow above the Kar98 because the Crossbow does one thing that no other weapon in the game can do, which is it can one-hit and insta-kill and send people straight to the gulag. If you get a headshot or shoot somebody with low armor, they down, and then the explosive tip will go boom, and they insta-die, no self-res, no buddy res, nothing, straight to gulag or deleted. And I think that despite the Crossbow being awkward and difficult to use, that is an extremely valuable thing to have in your toolkit and really elevates it. If it didn't have those attachments, it would definitely be down here in F tier. But those attachments, the insta deletion option, pick it up. I would want to put it in S, but it's just too awkward. So we're going to drop it down to A. The SKS, I'm going to probably put down here in the C tier. It's functional. It's like a reasonable DMR. It's not a particularly good one, in my opinion. I mean, you can make it work. It's got nice sights, I'll give it that. But it's not a weapon I would really gravitate toward or use. AX50, you know what? AX50, you're moving up here to the A tier. I've gotten softer on the AX50 over time. No, it's not quite as accurate or quite as good a range or quite as high a damage as the good old HDR, but it is way snappier. And if you're going to be sniping in the last couple of circles, it's incredibly valuable. Some people like the handling better just in general. And personally, I've always had great experiences with it. And the thing that keeps it S tier is the fact that it really does just one-shot people if you hit them in the head, which is awesome. Dragonov, you're going down in the F tier, buddy. Dragonov is garbage. Dragonov, I don't think I need to explain this one. The damage is low, the range is low, the recoil's awkward. There's not really a way to kit it to make it tremendously better than some of the other weapons. It's one of the ones, if you look at my channel, I haven't even done an in-depth on the Dragonov. It's so bad that I've been avoiding it. And the idea that I had in my head on how to end this entire series or season of in-depth was like an Adult Swim level Too Many Chefs video about me using the Dragonov and getting hit markers until I go insane and have like a mental breakdown or something. So let's move on to a weapon that's a little bit more fun, which is going to be the Hdmr Sniper. Hdmr? I'm thinking, God, it's a totally HDR Sniper Rifle. That's an S tier. I mean, it's got the best range, it's got the best damage, it's got great handling, ease of use. It's hard to beat. It's just as good. It's like a different flavor of AX50. It is a top tier weapon. There's a reason it's popular. There's a reason you see all the really great snipers playing around with it. The HDR is fantastic. Now this list is a little bit older. The Rytec AMR, the big 50 cal, isn't on here. If that were to be on here, it'd be an F tier. It would, because it can't one-shot headshot and the ammo conversions for it are kind of buggy. So we don't have that one today, but we have almost everything else. HDR, definitely S tier. We've got a couple of pistols next, so I'll probably try to do them a little bit faster than it warrant quite as much discussion. 1911, definitely going to go down here into F tier. The damage isn't fantastic. The time to kill isn't much better than these other pistols. Magazine count is 7 by default, which isn't very good, and you have to put extended mags to make it more functional. Not a very good weapon for Warzone. The regular 357, also F tier, perhaps the F'est of F tier, because it has a trigger pulling delay, because the double action hammer or whatever. I can one-shot headshot people in like super low armor and health, but not often. You usually need two. It's awkward, it handles funny, not a big magazine, not very spammable. Nothing really redeeming about it. The X16, I'm going to move up to D tier. That's your starting weapon. It's not trash. It's not something I would use late game, but it's spammable. It's functional. It has a huge magazine. It's a very like McDonald's cheeseburger kind of weak weapon, and I think it's a very appropriate starting pistol. Snake shot, I'm going to elevate pretty high up here to A. So snake shot, yes, did catch a nerf, especially in the akimbo department, but it's still powerful. People don't use it as often compared to other goofy things that we're doing now, but I promise you today, if somebody breaks out akimbo snake shots, you're gonna have a bad time. The Rennetti Burst, probably gonna go B tier on Rennetti Burst. Actually, I'm gonna go down to C tier on Rennetti Burst. That thing caught a huge nerf. I mean, not long ago, it absolutely would have been A tier or S tier, but after that, dude, it's like shooting pellets at people. I've had miserable experiences with it. The DPS went way down. Not a good weapon to use. Now, a weapon after my own true heart, the FAL is absolutely getting an S tier ranking. The FAL has been a fantastic weapon since the very launch of Warzone. Day one, it was great. Underused, people didn't gravitate toward it. But after they buffed the chest and especially the headshot damage, this thing is a melt machine. It has the fastest time to kill in Warzone, except maybe the crossbow or sniper rifle headshots up close. You shred people. You shred through MP5s. You shred through everything. It deals a lot of damage per shot. It's ammo efficient. When kitted properly, it's relatively low recoil. It's got great range and ballistics. The only thing that's bad about the FAL is it's semi-automatic. You have to have a good trigger finger, but it's a god weapon right now. The Growl, I'm still going to leave the Growl in S tier. The Growl caught a nerf. The Archangel's not as strong. It's a little bit more wobbly. The recoil's not as good, but the Growl is still a top tier assault rifle. It's still got overall good handling, fantastic iron sights with that Archangel barrel that everybody likes so much. It's easy to use. It's very popular. This is probably still the most meta weapon. If I were to sit down today and say, I'm really going to try hard in Warzone today, I'm really just going to dig in deep and go hard, it would probably be on the Growl, because it's just a god gun. The Odin, we'll give the Odin a B tier. Odin is a little bit underrated. I think a lot of people would probably move it down here to C and D, but the Odin is very similar to the FAL, except it can go fully automatic, and depending on your kitting, it can have better range and recoil. The thing that keeps the Odin out of the A tier is just the fact that the handling on it is slow. When you make a weapon like this that works at long range, it's going to be slow, it's a little bit awkward, but it can absolutely slap with the right kitting. Let's talk about the M13. M13, another underrated one. I don't think it quite deserves to be S tier, but I do think the M13 deserves to be A tier. The M13 is a weapon that I have seen since the very beginning of Warzone to now in about the same levels of use. It's popular, and it's popular because the recoil is very low. It's got an extremely predictable and easy to use recoil, while its damage may not be great, and while it may not have the biggest mags or like the coolest attachments, it's just incredibly easy to use. As a matter of fact, this might be the easiest weapon to use on the entire list, and because of that ease of use, it can take an average player and make them seem like an aim god. It is a seriously strong weapon that doesn't get enough love. FAMAS is actually trash. I almost had another breakdown on stream because I was trying to find a way to use the FR556 or FAMAS assault rifle. I was trying so hard to find like the right attachment combinations, the right extended mags or barrel or range or recoil mitigation, running compensators instead of suppressors. And at the end of the day, it's just not a great weapon. It's great for base multiplayer. It shreds at that. It can be fun in Warzone, maybe early game, maybe very late game where nobody has armor. But by and large, you can't kill people with one burst, and the burst delay is so long that you usually die before you get the opportunity to shoot again. So it's not a weapon that I would ever use. AK-47 is getting a solid B tier here. AK-47 is getting a B. AK is pretty solid. I think it's actually, I'm gonna drop the AK-47. I'm sorry guys, I'm gonna drop it down one down here to C tier. The AK-47 could be better, but you pretty much have a choice between either high recoil or really slow handling. If you kit the AK-47 to be more accurate and thus feel better, more like these other weapons up here, it just handles kind of slow. And if you kit it to be fast, then it kind of just gets really hard to use. So I'm going to give the AK a C tier, and that's both for its normal and ammo conversions. The SCAR is getting a big fat F. I can't lie to you guys on this one. The SCAR is one of the worst weapons in Warzone. The SCAR has a super slow DPS, a super slow time to kill. It doesn't have a big magazine. The ballistics aren't particularly special. The SCAR is not a great weapon. Yes, I know I had that good game with it. Yes, I know some of you like it. Yes, the iron sights on it are good, but at the end of the day, it just kills slower than almost any other gun, yet still has less bullets in the magazine and not so great handling and recoil. I can't see it going anywhere other than F. The Ram 7, I am going to go probably C tier on that one as well. Now, this is a weapon that I originally touted as one of flaunted, shown, told about as being one of the best in Warzone. My opinion on it has changed over time, especially compared to some of these S tier weapons up here. The Ram 7, yes, it has great time to kill. It is a good assault rifle. It shreds up close. I personally like it. But that personal enjoyment of it doesn't override the fact that it just kicks way more and is way more difficult to use than these other weapons. If the Ram kicked less, it would definitely be an A or B tier weapon, but the recoil's really brutal for a lot of players, so it kind of has to go down here in C. MP5, unsurprisingly, A tier. This is a top tier weapon. The 45 round 9mm mags are way better than the 10mm ones. It has among the fastest time to kill of the SMGs. The recoil is very predictable. The iron sights are great. The handling's good. The reload's good. This is the standard backup weapon in all of Warzone for a good reason. It just outperforms almost everything else in the submachine gun role, followed very closely by the MP7, but the MP7's not quite as good. I'd put the MP7 down here in A tier because the time to kill is a little bit slower. I do think the iron sights are great. When you change the stock, I think it makes them a little bit awkward. I like the big 60 round mags extended, though it kind of makes the gun look like a drill. And the only thing that's really holding it back is it doesn't kill quite as fast as the MP5. The P90, I'm going to drop down here to, oh, you guys aren't going to like this one. I'm going to put the P90 down here in D tier. And I do that not necessarily because it's a particularly bad weapon. Like, it's not the worst, but it doesn't have a specialty anymore. When extended mags are kind of the norm in this mode and everybody's running extended mags all the time on every weapon, having an SMG with big mags doesn't matter a whole lot. And you need something with higher damage, better range, better recoil, and it's got the recoil part down pat. But the Bison, MP5, MP7, even Uzi, they all pretty much offer some kind of, what's the right word? They offer some more utility, something better than what the P90 has to offer. Like, I guess, okay, if you wanted to judge the P90 purely by itself in its own little vacuum, it'd probably be B or C, but you just got better options in almost any of these tiers. For example, the Bison. I think the Bison is probably a little bit worse than the MP7, so I'm going to put that one over here in B tier. It's close. I really want to move the Bison up and put it in A tier, but it just doesn't quite have the DPS. Now, it has better range than either of these two and a giant 84 round magazine, which is just awesome when you put extended mags on it. But at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a specialty weapon. It doesn't kill quite as fast, which means it's not as good up close and not quite as good as what it's, supposed to be as an SMG, but it is a great weapon. The Uzi, I'm going to put in the exact same B tier as the PP19. The Uzi, as we recently did an in-depth on and you saw, is an unusual weapon. Awkward. Oh, that's the 41 AE. Do we have a regular Uzi in here? The 41 AE, oh yeah, okay. So Uzi 41 AE, that's exactly what I was talking about. That one's pretty solid. It's kind of in between an assault rifle and an SMG, but has SMG handling. So it's a really interesting weapon in a lot of ways. I can't quite say it should be a top meta weapon, but it does have a very interesting viability to it. Ooh, Striker. Okay, I've screwed this one up. The Striker goes in D. Striker, 0.45 HP. Probably going to put that in the B tier of weapons. This is the 12 round magazine that has the 2-round burst that you can delete people with. The time to kill on this little burst SMG when you put the ammo conversion on there is super fast. The only problem is the magazine's tiny, and that really limits. If it had a bigger magazine, it'd be one of the best weapons in the game. The regular Uzi without the ammo conversion, that one is going to be D tier. Not very good at all. The range, the damage, none of that stuff is particularly impressive to me. I would not be using it very often, and I don't think it has a whole lot of redeeming attributes. It's a little bit easier to use and a little bit faster to kill than some of the F tier weapons, but not tremendously. Ooh, we have the MP5 10mm. So the 10mm rounds are not any better for Warzone than the 9mm. They're a wasted attachment spot that just makes your gun shoot a little slower and gives you different recoil. I would put that down in an F tier player. When I kill somebody and pick up an MP5 that has those 10mm rounds, that means somebody did not watch in depth, they do not know what they're doing, and they have a weapon that has utterly wasted attachments on it. M4 Socom, probably going to move down here to D tier. Didn't have a particularly good time with that one. That's the 10 round mags that deal a whole bunch of damage. It's kind of supposed to be like a sniper rifle. Previously, like when Warzone launched compared to the balance then, I might have said it's C or B. But now that the FAL is here, up in the S tier, there's not really a reason to have this, so I'm moving this down to D tier. The only reason to use this is you can kind of like full auto a DMR, but in my opinion, the Odin over here does the same job better with bigger magazines, so I don't have a reason to go for that. M4 9mm, also probably going to put that in D tier, even though it kills faster and is, you know, it's pretty comparable to a lot of the SMGs. You can just kit the SMGs better with less attachments and less ammo conversions and less time wasted and less nonsense. It's just not as good as its competitors. Oh yeah, the AK, well we already discussed that. The AK is basically the same no matter what you put on it. Model 680 shotgun, I'm going to move this one only. Okay, so I'm going to judge the Model 680 only if you have incendiary shells, which is absolutely the way to use this. Kind of a B tier gun. It really does do a lot of damage and it burns people and it tears through armor and it's got quite good range. Some people love it, some people don't. I kind of, you know, I get it if you don't like it, but it's really solid. R90, after it caught the first nerf and just hasn't been quite as good in Warzone, I'd probably move it down here to a D. It just doesn't deal very much damage. 725, also, I'm gonna probably a D tier. It can slap up close, I guess, but again, not really that great. You shoot twice, maybe get a kill, then you're done, and I don't know if that really like saved you when you've got 4 more people rushing and it's kind of fluky. Origin 12, absolutely going to be F tier. Origin 12 has some fun kind of uses. It can feel satisfying. Every now and then you'll catch a team not paying attention and you'll hit them with your like 20 round mags or whatever, but the vast majority of the time you're going to be shooting pellets at people. Not going to be very useful. VLK Rogue, I'm going to put a little bit below the Model 680, only because this one has incendiary rounds, which can be kind of useful. And the damage per shot isn't very good. The handling's a little bit weird. In a lot of ways, I would like to move it down even lower, down to D tier. But I think the spammability of it compared to the 680 does give it some viability. M91 Lmg, I'm gonna give that one probably a... I think a C tier would be fair for the M91. The M91 is a weapon that isn't particularly bad, it's just not particularly good. The time to kill is pretty good, the range is pretty good, but I just think that it's a little bit slow, and the recoil on it's awkward. I've picked up some ground ones, I've made some kits of them, I've tried to make it better. I mean, it's usable, it's full auto, you can kill people, just probably not the best choice. The same with the MG34, it's usable, it's full auto, it's got a great time to kill, just an awkward weapon, not the greatest. PKM? Okay guys. This is like spoiling another in-depth here. PKM is going to go into A tier. PKM is a really good weapon. I don't actually think the Bruin is on here. Oh man, we're missing the Bruin. Okay, so if the Bruin were on here, and let's call this MG34 the Bruin. The Bruin would be S tier. The Bruin's very easy to use. It's very good. It handles very fast. There's basically nothing wrong with the weapon. A lot of pros and competitive streamers are using it. So we'll call this MG34 the Bruin. The PKM is only slightly worse. It has basically the same damage, same range, very similar time to kill, just a little bit worse handling. Overall, it's a little bit of a slower weapon. Recoil, in my opinion, can be better. Giant magazines, maybe better. Really good mounted. The PKM has been a solid Warzone weapon since launch. It's just not a popular one. SA-87 is going down here in the D tier. I think everybody kind of expected that. It's very difficult to use. Handling is awkward. Damage isn't great. Not a lot of redeeming attributes. Yes, it's full auto and it kills in a reasonable amount of time, but it's still going to be subpar compared to the competition. The Holger Lmg is absolutely getting an F. This is the slowest killing fully automatic weapon in Warzone. I'm serious. The Holger is really slow to kill. It's even slower to kill if you put the 30 round mags on it, because that lowers the damage. It makes it deal like no damage at all, which is just miserable. There's no good or fun way to use the Holger, in my opinion, and even if you put anime girls on it. EBR 14, also getting an F tier. This weapon is in many ways worse than the other marksman rifles, including the Crossbow. I think the SKS outperforms it, especially the FAL outperforms it. Not a super good weapon, not one I gravitate toward. Headshot damage is interesting, you know, it's an armor cracker, but probably not the strongest. Got more of some of the, so we got some repeats on here. Joker's one I've been working on a lot with lately. I'm probably going to do an in-depth on this one. I'm thinking the Joker might actually be like a B tier weapon. It's specialty, it's niche, but it has a huge, massive, out-of-this-world explosive radius. It comes in and hits people at odd angles. You can shoot it over ledges, into windows. You can lock onto vehicles and blow them up. Pretty much no explosive in the game deals more damage than this right here. It has a thermal mode for scanning. The only problem with it is it's just painfully slow and it takes a little while to lock. It's a little bit of an awkward weapon, but it offers insane utility. The Strela, I don't really like this one. There's not really a reason for me to use it. It's just kind of meh. M19, a little bit of an underrated pistol. I'd probably put the M19 up here in B tier, only because the Akimbos are stronger than most people give them credit for. Akimbo M19s, which is another in-depth I haven't done yet in Warzone, much like multiplayer, very spammable, very easy to use, and a little bit underrated. I kinda want to move it down here to C. I'll probably move it down to C just to be safe, since I haven't tested it a whole lot, but in theory, it should be a little bit better than you think. RPG, definitely an A tier weapon, very difficult to outplay an RPG. It deals a ton of damage, it blows people up, it's easy to use, it's common. There's pretty much nothing wrong with it other than being a little bit slow. The Pila is also going to be a B tier weapon. It was recently buffed along with all of the explosives, so the Pila deals almost as much damage as the RPG, doesn't shoot quite as straight, but can lock on, so it offers utility in that front. I think the Pila is one of the more underrated weapons. When you can really hammer people with this weapon and they don't expect it, and then you still have something to lock on to choppers with. And finally, last but not least, not F tier least at least, the 50 cal. 50 cal Desert Eagle, probably gonna be probably gonna be C tier. The Deagle is a little bit more spammable than the other pistols, in my opinion. The headshot's pretty similar to the Magnum. It's not easy to use, okay? I'm not gonna lie to you and say the Deagle's great and simple, but it does have a spammability and a certain level of potential about it that I think elevates it above the Uzi and above a lot of these other pistols. I kind of pick these up on the ground and keep them, especially the ones now that have the suppressor and the scope, because I can pop people at pretty surprising ranges with that weapon. And we don't have a Finnick here either, but let's call this striker the Finnick. That would probably be a B tier as well. Great DPS, terrible everything else. So we'll call that striker the Finnick. And that's going to be my tier list for Call of Duty Warzone. This is how I rank all of the weapons in the game. Mind you, we had a few that don't exist, like the Rytec AMR would be down here in F tier. The MG34, this is actually the Bruin, and this is actually the Finnick. But my top weapons are AUG, the 2 sniper rifles, FAL, Grau, MP5. Outside of that, Crossbow, Kilo, Snake Shot's a little underrated, M13, MP7, PKM, and RPG are very good. Once you start hitting the B tier, you're hitting a lot of kind of like suboptimal, but still pretty usable zone or utility weapons. And then D and F tier, these are the things I just avoid. These are the things I try to not go anywhere near, and I would not use any of these if I can avoid it. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something useful, and I hope to see you trying out at least a few of these weapons. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.